Praise God. Hope you're having a blessed day today. We're going to get back in our devotion again. This is on Tuesday, March the 2nd, and I hope you're coming out to our revival. We started our revival on Sunday, February 28th. Yesterday, March 1st and 2nd, and then tomorrow with the 3rd. I hope you're coming out, and you'll come out. Evangelist Jimmy Jones is going to be with us and going to be in our revival, so just want to remind you of that as well. Today we're going to get back in the book of Matthew here. Matthew chapter 20, and we're going down to the point here where Jesus, yesterday we talked about how the mother of James and John came to Jesus and wanted to know if her sons could sit on his right and his left hand when he come into his kingdom. And of course, anybody that sits on your right and left hand, they're going to have a position of power and authority. And so the other 10 were upset about this. The other disciples were upset that they would even think of such a thing. You know, how could they ask of such a thing? And so we got into that. We talked about that yesterday. Well, let's go on with that just a little bit further, because Jesus makes a great statement here. I mean, well, every statement Jesus makes is a great statement. But here he makes he gives us a commandment to live by. And this is and what he's fixing to say here to us is something that is really hard to do. It is hard to do. And he knew it would be hard for them as well, but he knew that he had to implant this within their spirit and in their mind and teach them this concept, because he did not want them after his death and resurrection and his ascension to be sitting here arguing about who was number one and who was going to run the show and all of those other things. Here's what he said. He says this in Matthew 20 and verse number 25 and through 28. He says, you know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. He said, but it shall not be so among you, for whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. So he says here in a nutshell, he says, if you want to be first and you want to strive to be first, then you will become the servant. He said, because if you want to have a spot of leadership and authority, you must understand that along with that comes a servant's heart. He said, just as the Son of Man, talking about himself, he said, as the Son of Man came, he said, the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and give his life a ransom for many. He said, I did not come to be ministered unto, but I come to minister. And I come to give my life a ransom for many. He's not asking his followers to bring him riches and jewelry and money and all these worldly things. I mean, you think about how we've gotten so far off with this today, and you know how I would say some misguided ministers, evangelists, would-be prophets, apostles, or whatever you want to call them on TV, who beckon people to give. And I think to myself, dear God, they've never caught the whole thing of the servant's heart, because they're just wanting more and more for themselves. Jesus here, he never talks about, I want you to give, me clothing. I want you to, I want a big house to live in. I want the best of this. I want the best of that. I've got to have all of these things. No, he never did any of that. And I know some would argue about it and say, well, we don't have to live like him. He wants us to live far above how he lived and all this. That's not what he's telling me. He's telling me here, if I want to be high up, then I have to go down. Go down. Now, that doesn't mean I go down in sin or something like that. That's not what he's meaning here. In other words, if I want to be amongst the rulers, so to speak, or high in his kingdom, then I have to be a servant. A servant. Boy, I'm telling you what, because you understand, a servant, their mentality was, they had to eat last. Their mentality was, they were the last one to sit down and rest. They were the last one to do this. They were the last one to do that. They made sure everybody else was served before they got served. They made sure everyone else was taken care of before they were taken care of. That's a servant's heart. Now, I know in the world we're living today, it's a challenging world because people want to get ahead, and it's kind of dog eat dog sometimes, and it's just like, boy, people are at each other's throats. But I want to encourage you, just because the world lives that way doesn't mean the church is supposed to live that way. We're not supposed to be that way. I'm not saying you shouldn't have ambitions, and you shouldn't have goals, and you shouldn't want to try to make, a good living for yourself and all those things. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying this: if you desire a position in God's kingdom, if you desire to be one of the rulers, so to speak, then you have to set your heart on being a servant. I know it may not make much sense, but that's the way Jesus said. Jesus said, because I did not come to be ministered to, but to minister to. He said, I come to minister to others. And he said, I come to give my life a ransom. Give my life a ransom. That's what our life must be as well. We're not going to give our life as Jesus gave his, because Jesus gave his life for the sin of the world. Jesus gave his, life's blood so we could be free from our sin and we could be redeemed, praise God. But we have to, with the same vein of thought here, we have to become a ransom as well. We have to be willing to lay down, to become a servant, to just realize that it's not all about us, but it's about him, praise God. And we are to be servants in his kingdom and servants of the Most High God. If we truly want to be his sons and daughters, then first we must be servants. Praise God. God bless you. I hope you have a great day and enjoyed this service, or enjoyed this devotion today. God bless you.